Here's something strange about people. The moment you stop being easy to manipulate, people start testing you. Not obviously, just little things, small comments, small reactions. You've probably experienced this before, a moment where something felt slightly off, but you couldn't explain why. And the interesting part is, most people don't realize when it's happening. But once you start noticing these patterns, you really can't unsee them. And when you see them in real time, something interesting happens. People start treating you differently because most people aren't used to someone who doesn't react the way they expect. And the first shift that makes that happen is something most people accidentally do all the time. They explain themselves too much. Number one, stop over explaining yourself. Most people think explaining themselves make them look reasonable, but psychologically, it actually often does the opposite. When someone senses uncertainty in you, they instinctively push further. This is tied to a concept in social psychology called status signaling. The person who feels the need to justify themselves the most often feels lower status in that moment. So people test it. They question your decisions, they challenge your choices. Sometimes they act confused, even when they clearly understood you the first time. Most people assume this is about the topic, but it usually isn't. It's actually about the dynamic. And once you realize that, you stop over explaining. Unshakable people explain once, maybe twice, then they stop. And when someone realizes they're not getting more from you, the dynamic shifts because now the person testing you has to sit with their own discomfort. And most people don't like that, which leads to the next strategy. And this one is subtle. But once you see it, you'll notice it everywhere. Number two, let silence do some of the work. Most people are uncomfortable with silence. In conversation, silence creates tension. And when tension appears, most people rush to fill it. They explain more, they backtrack, and they soften their position. But psychologically, silence creates something interesting. It creates cognitive pressure. The brain wants to resolve the tension, so the other person starts talking. They reveal more than they intended and they explain their real motivation. Sometimes they even contradict themselves. Most people miss this moment completely because they're too busy reacting. But if you simply just pause, look at the person, and say nothing, the pressure quietly shifts back to them. And once you notice this dynamic, you'll see how often people reveal themselves, which leads to the next test people use. This one targets your emotion. Number three, don't react when provoked. There's a psychological reason why some people push buttons. It's called reactivity testing. When someone isn't sure how much influence they have over you, they provoke small reactions. It could come in a form of a sarcastic comment, a dismissive tone, or a subtle criticism. Not big enough to call it out directly, but just enough to see if you react. You've probably seen this happen before, maybe even recently. When someone reacts emotionally, the other person learns something important. They learn what controls you. And most people reveal that information instantaneously. But emotionally grounded people will do something different. They pause, they observe, they get to decide whether in that moment actually deserves a reaction. And most often, it doesn't, which confuses people who expect a reaction. Because the pattern they rely on suddenly stops working, that pattern breaks, and people reveal their real true intentions, which leads to another behavior you'll start noticing. Number 4, stay calm when someone tries to undermine you. Sometimes the test is subtle. Someone minimizes your success. They downplay your idea or they just make a quiet joke at your expense. Psychology shows that when someone feels threatened by another person's progress, they often reduce its importance. Not always consciously. Sometimes it's just the ego protecting itself. If your confidence makes someone uncomfortable, they may try to shrink it slightly so the balance feels restored. Most people respond emotionally in this moment. They defend themselves, or they prove their point and they escalate the interaction. But the calm response is often more powerful. You acknowledge it, maybe even smile, and then you move on. Because unshakable people don't chase validation. And when someone realizes their attempt to undermine you didn't work, their behavior usually stops or becomes very obvious, which leads to something interesting. People begin choosing their words more carefully around you. And this next strategy is a big reason why. Number 5, you don't feel the need to win every interaction. A lot of people treat conversations like competitions. Someone disagrees, they must win. Someone challenges, they must prove themselves. But psychologically, constant winning isn't always powerful. Sometimes the strongest position is quiet certainty, because some arguments aren't about the truth at all. They're more about emotional engagement. And when someone refuses to participate in that emotional tug of war, the argument loses its energy, which often frustrates people who expected a reaction. But it also earns something else: respect. And that respect becomes even clearer when you apply the next strategy. Number 6, stop seeking constant approval. This is one of the biggest shifts that happens when someone stops looking for approval from everyone around them. People notice. When someone is uncomfortable with their own decisions, it changes the social dynamic. Psychologists sometimes call this status independence. It's the signal that someone doesn't rely on group validation. Some people admire it, some people respect it, and very few people feel threatened by it. Which is why calm confidence often gets treated differently than loud confidence. One demands attention, the other quietly commands it. And when people realize they can't control your self perception, they usually stop trying, which leads to the final strategy. And this one ties everything together. Number 7, observe more than you react. The biggest difference between reactive people and unshakable people is observation. Reactive people move quickly, they respond immediately, they react emotionally. But observant people watch patterns first: the tone, the timing, and the energy shifts in conversation. They notice when someone's behavior doesn't match their words. And once you start paying attention to this, something interesting happens. You realize that a lot of social behavior is surprisingly predictable. People reveal their insecurities, their intentions, their motivations, usually without realizing it. And all you have to do is pay attention. Now that we have gone over the 7 strategies, did you ever catch someone doing one of these to you while it was happening? Or did it only click later? Because once you start noticing all these patterns, you really can't unsee them. And something else starts to make sense too. Sometimes people aren't reacting this way because they dislike you. Sometimes it's because you intimidate them. And once you start to see those, you'll realize they were there the whole time. We'll talk about that tomorrow. I'll see you in the next video.